might become the new normal, folks. Okay. So hello, everyone. I'm Matt Thomas. I am the Executive Director at the Paseo Project. Thank you all for coming, and thanks for everyone for tuning in live. The Paseo Project is excited to welcome Jessica Blinkhorn back to Taos as our 2021 Artist in Residence. Jessica is a visual artist and performance artist based out of Atlanta, Georgia. She is dedicated to the evocation and social empathy and advocacy for individuals with disability issues by way of visual works, performance, and writing. For the month of June, Jessica is premiering Residence We Three. It's a series of performances held in areas here in Taos with a lack of accessibility. As a wheelchair user, Blinkhorn uses her own form as an object of reverence, placing herself in front of areas where accessibility is a challenge. These performances are scheduled for every Friday this month on different sites throughout town, and we'll be announcing those on social media shortly before the Friday. They do take they're 3 hours long performances ending at twilight, so we'll announce those times. And we ask that you bring a flower to engage with the performance. Jessica, you might recognize, it was a featured artist at the Paseo 2019 festival, where she fell in love with Taos in northern New Mexico. However, she took note of the many access challenges in the area and sent us a proposal to come back and address our community's needs more specifically. And we are excited to bring Jessica back. Jessica's work has been hailed as abrasively insightful, an educational exploration, and satirical sadism. Taos experienced all of that and more when she was here. I've had people tell me they found it the most profound experience at Paseo, and I've had people tell me that they were just not able to engage. Jessica's work demands visibility. Her presence elicits feelings. She subverts traditional aesthetics for much needed empathy. Jessica's work is quiet, gentle, and unconfrontational, but what it provokes is transformative in the seismic impact on public policy and urban design, to the awakening of the able-centric assumptions we may hold in our awareness of the other or the invisible. And to quote Jessica, it's one of my favorite quotes, "I am not broken, but the world around me and infrastructures where we all exist are." Jessica has been featured on ABC World News, was the subject of the award-winning documentary short Grounded by Reality. She has been honored with a number of grants, awards, and residencies, the most recent being named a Franklin Furnace Awardee for 2019-2020. Jessica is a part-time instructor in the Department of Fine Arts for Georgia State University and Perimeter Colleges and the Collinwald Fine Arts Center. So this month, Jessica will be here from the 1st all the way to the 28th, and she'll present Residence We Three every Friday night. As I mentioned, those locations will be announced on social media. And in addition to today's talk here at the Harwood, we are partnering with the Taos Center for the Arts to present a free community screening of Crip Camp, and that's on Sunday, the 15th, and that's 2 o'clock, and that's free. It's an in-person event as well. Come at 2 for the film, and then at 4 o'clock, we're doing a Q&A at the theater, and we will also be live streaming that. And we're very excited to bring on the co-directors from Crip Camp, the film. We'll have Jessica, and then that's also being moderated by Nancy Loppenheimer. So it should be a really nice, engaging conversation. I just want to say this project was supported in part by the New Mexico Arts, so we want to thank them. They're a division of the Department of Cultural Affairs, also the National Endowment for the Arts, Revolt Gallery, and thank you to the Harwood Museum of Art for hosting us today. Thank you, Francis, for getting us set up, and Juniper, and for all of you here in person and streaming online. Thank you so much. So please help me welcome Jessica.
Thank you, everyone. If you hear clinking, I assure you I'm okay. I just had a cough drop. Last time I was in Taos, it was the end of blooming season, came this year, and cotton root trees have given me a run for my money. So I've been ingesting cough drops throughout the day. So the name of my slideshow is Finding My Pudding, pun intended. What you're going to see is a series of slides that kind of give you a through the years perspective of how my work has changed. I first started performance about 12 years ago, I think. Before we get into all that, we're going to stay to my next slide now. I would like to, I recognize my role as a guest in the Northeast New Mexico region. I acknowledge the Tewa tribe as the indigenous caretakers of this land, and as a visitor, extend my appreciation for their grace and the inspirational beauty of the natural landscape of their land. Okay? I would also like to thank everybody for bringing back, for being here, and for Matt and Paseo and Harwood for inviting me to come back. Next slide. I don't really have to go through this that much because Matt already covered most of it. I'm a grant-based artist and performance artist. A lot of my work, or the work I produce, advocates for people with disabilities in the aging and LGBTQ plus community. I want people to acknowledge the exposure and educate people to experience. I like to make my presence known. It's been that way since I was a tiny child. I was one of 3 children in my household. All 3 of us were disabled. And I was always the one that got spanked, got in trouble, got put in the corner, and I was always the one that figured out how to get out of the corner and help everyone else get out of the corner. So being kind of a standout personality for a very long time. I decided to go into performance as a way of continuing to create works of art. I am classically, formally trained in drawing and painting. I have my bachelor's from KSU and Kennesaw State University in Kennesaw, Georgia. I have my master's from Georgia State University in Atlanta, Georgia. I decided to go into performance not really on my own. I had a mentor in grad school that said I had a very shamanic presence, that people wanted to know me, and I needed to give them the opportunity to know me because I could change their perspectives. You know, before that, I was very drawn to looking at people. I love to draw people. I love to see the beauty behind the eyes and capture their character to their faces. But because of the nature of my disease, which is degenerative, my ability to draw and paint becomes less and less as I age. But now through medical science, maybe I'll get some of that back. Can you hit the next slide, Matt? So this is actually my very first performance. This was at a little dive area in Atlanta, Georgia. And the individual that you see with me is my best friend, part-time caregiver, kind of life partner, royal pain in my behind. He actually helped me with this performance, and it was based on a series done by Matthew Barney called Drawing Restraints. And what I did was I had him lower me onto an 8-foot by 8-foot piece of canvas, and I used extenders, and I started painting around my body. When I lost the ability to feel my legs, or I began to have pain in my bottom, I asked him to put me back in the lift and relocate me to another area on the canvas. This went on for an hour. One of my best friends actually fell asleep during the performance and started snoring. It was really entertaining. But it was my first actual performance, and it's really something when you put yourself in a vulnerable situation in the privacy of your own home versus putting yourself in the same situation in public. I've never been lifted in front of anybody in that way. I've never shown the back of my legs in that way. And if you also, something that's very important about this image is that if you notice on my shirt, I have the Mario symbol, the little mushroom Mario symbol attached to my shirt. This performance was done 1 month to the day after the passing of my brother from complications from the disease that we share. And it was dedicated to him. Can you go to the next slide? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right, so this is another performance artist named Shauna Robbins. Shauna has actually performed here as part of the Poco Nostro the same year I was here. This one was just me kind of chanting in a microphone muted as she danced under the rainbow. It was meant to be very avant-garde. And who doesn't want to take the chance to get naked in public? Let's be honest. Because as you age, you gotta let yourself breathe, you know? All right, can you go to the next slide? This was my thesis show. So for my thesis show, I spent 2 years writing poems and stories and all that. And one second, Kiara, can you push the microphone up? Guys, my beautiful assistant, Kiara, is gonna come push my petite microphone on my plus size neck. All right, sorry, that's a technical difficulty there. Can y'all still hear me? Okay. All right, so this is my thesis show. For my thesis show, I had created several 5" by 7" drawings that hung at my eye level in the gallery, which was kind of a way of me saying, you know, people condescend to me and look down at me, but at this point, they had to kneel and look at my art. And they sat on top of these little handmade staircases that I had attached to the wall, 3 stairs, because my last memory of walking was falling down 3 stairs as a child. And I did a live transfer in the gallery into a chair, and I read these stories. And I actually put one of my poems up, and if you guys don't mind, I'll read it for you real quick, okay? So I'm gonna read it right from the screen. This is called Am I Still? Am I still a woman if my arms will not raise to capture your flesh and drink of your gaze? Am I still a woman if my cleanliness is you, and one should be one, but now one is 2? Am I still a woman if I'm demanded haste for another to show and clear me of waste? Am I still a woman if my feet are to ground, as music is to silence and silence is to sound? Am I still a woman if my legs will not wrap and my back will not bend to welcome a visitor, lover, or friend? Am I still a woman if I'm aware of what's not, a life of I-do's and no time not? Am I still a woman if my womb will not swell from the bundle of joy and love's joyful spell? Will I still be a woman when bearers are bound to read from my memories and bury the book below ground? I have always been a woman of this, I have no doubt, for only a woman would open her soul and let her insecurities bleed out. And I wrote that along with many other stories, and I read them aloud. And I kind of just really opened myself up to whatever the audience is willing to think or feel. And it was one of the most successful thesis shows, I think, for Georgia State. We had standing room only, so it was a pretty great accomplishment for me. Next slide. So this is where I started to get a little more. All right, I don't know how to take a sip of water, I apologize. Ooh, allergies. That way you, I start coughing, just come back up here and put it in my face. Okay, sorry. This is a performance called I Think We're Alone Now. Yes, it's based on that Tiffany song from the 80s. I actually had the gallery, this is at the Defibrillator Gallery in Chicago. I was invited 1 month back after a performance festival there. And they moved a hospital bed in the gallery space, and I had written a performance about sexuality and disability and how individuals with disabilities are seen as non-sexual entities. And if I'm going to be quite honest with everybody, we're exactly the opposite. Summer camp was a wild ride, let me just tell you that. Okay, so what I did was I wanted it to be inclusive. So I had 3 different performance artists also invited to perform with me. And I did a live insertion performance. So I laid in a hospital bed and I had different performance artists come up and insert flowers into my vaginal canal. Each flower represented a character that person had to hold on to in order to engage with someone with a disability. Strength, compassion, gentleness. And then at the end, the final flower was depetaled on top of my body and I was put to rest. Can you go to the next one? This was probably the most memorable. This is actually legendary in Atlanta. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but this is me in a Chicago-based performance group, Mother Girl. I invited them in. We did a performance based on the 3 Graces. We came out, we delivered this monologue in unison, and then we were tethered by our breasts to each other and the wall. And the tethers had Fruit Loops on them. And people had to come and crack the Fruit Loops off of the tethers before we could leave the space. And it was very slow at first until we had an unexpected visitor in this open air gallery. And he came in and decided to perform with us. This is one of these are the most modest of images from the performance, but we had to have him leave. After he left, however, the crowd just got up out of nowhere and just started shredding these Fruit Loops off of these tethers. And it just looked like confetti flying everywhere. It was actually one of the most memorable performances of my life, actually. I kind of felt like we should have given the guy that came into the space a tip, but we couldn't find him. Okay. With the work of my brother. Well, I'll talk about one later. So 3 has a special meaning for me. It's not just a number. 3 children born in the same house with the same disease. When I first noticed I was losing the ability to walk, I was 3 years old. How did I realize I was losing the ability to walk? I filled out 3 sets of different schools. 3 is a big moment in my life. So that's just a small video from Inverse Performance Festival in Fayetteville, Arkansas. This is from 2016. I did a piece called Numbers. I did a live stick and poke. An artist named Amber Eagleton, who lived in that area at that time, came and stick and poke numbers into my body. Each number had a specific location and a memory attached to that location. The performance lasted about an hour, got very emotional, but it was actually a great experience, and I had some pretty awesome ideas. Can't really complain there. All right, next one. This was at the Art in Odd Places Performance Festival in New York, Manhattan area. And if you notice, I'm wearing a costume. I actually had I like to hire my students to come in and help me with certain things. Like they'll travel with me, they'll get to make costumes and give them kind of an experience. So one of my very talented students actually made this costume for me. And it's meant to be this tribute to this Lee Bowery Club Kid meets bovine costume. But I basically set up an area on the street in New York. This is the table with a meal, candlelight, wine, water, and I set up and I started feeding myself. It was still 48 degrees there. And as people walked by, I asked them for help. And I would say, hey, excuse me, would you mind? And they just walk by. Or sometimes it would stop. And I was like, would you mind holding my wine up for me? Now, this was all just kind of based on how people interact with individuals with disability. Will you stop and help somebody dance? I put myself in this costume because one of the most difficult things for me to do in public is feed myself. I get extremely tired. It takes a lot of time to get me set up. And I feel very vulnerable because I'm also a big individual. So people automatically sit there and think, oh, I wonder how much she's going to do. So that's why I also put myself in this very cow-like color costume. I wanted to be a spectacle at that moment. I wanted them to stop and look at me. And when I had their attention, I wanted to see if they would help me based on me and not the way I looked. There are actually a lot of people that stopped. One of the funniest scares though I got, honestly, was from another guy in Richmond. I have a picture of it. He's looking at me like, what is she doing? Next slide. This one is a little more regarding, goes more towards my advocacy, and that is, I decided to do my makeup on the street corner in front of an eyebrow shop when it's not accessible. So I set up a beauty station, and I did this kind of very YouTube tutorial eyebrow thing. Because, you know, honestly, I feel like I never have a face on if my eyebrows aren't on. I don't have them on today, but I also don't have a place to put them on. It's really uncomfortable to do. But it took me forever. It was really cold that day. It was 48 degrees. And afterwards, you know, took my hair out, I shook it out, and I posed in front of the studio. And the women came out and said, we could have done for you. And I was like, well, no, you couldn't have, because there are stairs getting into your facility. So it's really interesting, the juxtaposition. Right? This is at the Bubbly Creek Performance Festival in Bridgeport, which is outside of Chicago. And I love to dance. It's one thing I really like to do. And people are like, how do you dance? And it's like, a lot of people with disabilities are like, just I do this. And it's like, no, I don't always do that. I shake. I got a lot of weights and it's like making me bounce. So I was just going around the city of Bridgeport with a boombox, kind of like John Cusack and Say Anything, attached to my wheelchair, just dancing through the streets, and people were joining me. And I came across this beautiful individual who was sitting at the corner waiting for a bus. And I asked him to dance, and he started twirling around in circles in the middle of the street. And this talented talker named Chelsea Markinson actually snapped the photo. It's one of my favorite performance pictures. But once again, it's kind of showing that what you think you know about individuals with disabilities is not always what it is. We're exactly the same as anyone else. We just have to do things differently, including dancing. Okay. This was Paseo 2019. The name of my performance was Lay With Me. Honestly, I can tell you that Paseo 2019 was a life-changing experience for me. It really was. Further than everybody away from home. I've never been past Alabama at that point. Well, maybe Arkansas. That was a straight line. And I get to this town, and it's so beautiful, and I can breathe. I don't feel like I'm drinking the air. People are so nice. And honestly, I stood out like a sore thumb because I don't see many wheelchair people around. You know, I really didn't. But I found out because there were so few people with disabilities, noticeable disabilities, that there were people that really wanted to stop and say hey to me and ask me questions. So what the performance was, about a month before I came into Taos, I had sent out a survey of questions asking what your thoughts and feelings were before you went to sleep at night. And then I created a sound piece based on the interests of the people of Taos, mixed in with my own. I did a live transfer from my wheelchair into a hospital bed after doing my nightly routine in front of the crowd. And once I was in bed, the sound piece came on and played softly. And people were allowed to come and play with me and engage with me in any way that they could, and they wanted to. And honestly, I think after the first night, right, I was hoarse. I think I was hoarse from talking. Some people wanted to just come and play with me. Some people wanted to come and brush my hair. The kids were the best. The kids were the absolute best, because if you want to know true beauty in life, You ask the kid about it, because kids, they don't have anything complicating their insight and their perspective. It's all just unfiltered and beautiful. But what was really important about the kids was the parents came up and said, thank thank you for taking the time to like be honest with my kid and tell them about your life, because it's so hard to do that. People are so afraid to talk about differences, but it's the easiest thing to talk about because it opens you up to so much more. Next slide. These are just a few more images, me and Matt. I've got a lot of stories. I got a guy that looked exactly like Macaulay Culkin's brother Kieran. He came and sat down in front of me, and he just started telling about how like he was traveling and just told me his whole life story. There was a guy that was traveling across country with his dog, and he was afraid his dog wasn't going to be around him longer, so he wanted to do this trip. And his dog came down and held me and laid behind my legs. He just put his little head on my hips, and this boy just talked to me about his travels with his dog. True story, about 6 months ago, he found me on Instagram. And this dog's still alive, and they're still kicking it in Nashville. But me being vulnerable and me putting myself in these situations, me telling my stories, because that's what I do a lot of storytelling. It opens me up and it opens other people up, And communication is important, especially when you want to try to make change. Nothing will happen if you just close people off and don't talk and don't listen. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is a graphic image. I apologize. I'm going to see a lot more of you want to see, but no, whatever. You can find it on Google, so just later. So this is a performance. I hosted a performance night in Atlanta, Georgia, at Facet Gallery, what was Facet Gallery, and it was called Inclusion, the Night of Inclusion, and I asked different performers to come in. I had someone from New York, I had someone from Chicago, and I had another local artist. And it was just different performers performing during the night. The turnout was not as I would have liked, but Atlanta's performance is a little small pool. But a lot of the other performances were very thought-provoking. But this one was very personal for me. The name of this performance is called Horseback. Now let me tell you a story about this, okay? I come from a family, Southern people. If you didn't have time to take a bath, you took what was called a horseback. Wash all the important things and just go about your day. All right? Funny when you think about Southern family and just talking, and that's what comes out in conversation. Not so funny when that's your existence. So in 2019, me and my friend who had lived together for 5 years decided we needed some space. Found a little apartment. I spent months looking for apartments, months. It is extremely hard to find apartments that are accessible because something that people know is ADA doesn't really require for apartments to be accessible. It's the FHA that does. So I went and I found an apartment that was near public transportation. It was near the pharmacy and grocery store that I used. It was within walking distance of a lot of areas. And I signed a lease on a 647 square foot apartment in a very well known Little Five Points area of Atlanta. It was not an accessible apartment, but I signed the lease and they had said that they would talk to the property management company to see what they could do. The accessible apartment was directly located. Was directly located across from my apartment, and the person that was in that apartment was not disabled. What I had asked for the apartment complex to do was to install an easy access doorknob and a roll-in shower. All they had to do was put in grab bars. That's basically what makes it compliant, grab bars. The grab bars for someone with no upward strength, it's useless. And it also, unless you weigh like 27, 37, 47, 50, 100 pounds, You're not going to get that tug unless your caregiver can lift you, you know? They denied my request. They said that a bath, a roll shower, was not considered a reasonable accommodation. So I spent an entire year in an apartment that was not accessible. It cost $1,500 a month, including all the other fees. Sponge bathing and washing my hair in the dog spa located 3 doors down. And just 5 months before we got that apartment, they did a little something different to the dog spa, and they changed the doors and made them glass. So people could walk by and watch me wash my hair in the dog spa. This is not okay. It's not okay. What we ask for to be able to exist and be autonomous beings, individuals living and thriving in this community, doesn't take away from anyone. If anything, it gives to the community. You know, putting a roll-in shower does not devalue an apartment. It just opens it up for another person who needs that accommodation. But people don't want to do it. They don't want to do it because they don't want to spend the money. They would rather give an accessible apartment to someone that doesn't need it than let it sit vacant. And that's not okay. We deserve our dignity. We deserve just as much as anyone else. Okay, the next slide. This was just recently, this was in May, right before I came to South. I was in New York for a week. So I've been like traveling the past couple of weeks, might be why I'm getting sick too. But this was for Art and Odd Places 2019. And the performance was called The Normal Depot, the cost of being normal. And basically I did a sidewalk sale with all my belongings. From my wheelchair at $53,000 to my lift at $1,200, to my gloves at $29 a box, to my wipes, everything that the government gives me through my Medicaid. I put on the street for sale at sticker price. So you could see what it costs for a person with disability to live normally. Even my caregivers and assistants wore price tags. And my body was priced as well. I wanted people to really see just how much it does take for us to be included in this world and for us to just live a fraction of how we want to. Next one. This is a Franklin Furnace. You know, Franklin Furnace is like a big performance grant out of New York. The name of our performance is Who Am I? Who Are You? A Conversation in Times of Distance. My original proposal was not, a cube. It was actually allowing people to come up and engage with me intimately in a gallery space, crossing that line. But because of the pandemic, I had to rewrite my entire proposal. Here, thanks for it. Here, give her a round of applause. Thank you. So, because of the pandemic, I couldn't exactly invite people to come up and hug me or dance with me or whatever. So I decided to play with the idea of social media and how during the pandemic, we all were on our dating apps or our Instagrams or our Facebooks, just trying to continue to have this connection with people. But then I took away the ability to see me. So I had a former student of mine who lives in New York create a cube of canvas. And on the cube, I had words written. Each word written was a clue to one of my performance pieces. I spent 5 hours and 33 minutes inside of that cube. It got real hot. I think that face right there is like, I need water. I need water now. Got really hot. Was not a lot of foot traffic, but when people did actually get involved in the process, they got involved. I had a family out there for about an hour and a half trying to figure out who I was. My number was on the outside of the cube. The only way that they could know my identity was if they figured out who I was using the clues on the outside of the cube. They could ask me questions via text from outside the cube, but I could never give them my identity. They had to figure it out. Or they had to come back or wait to see who came out of the cube. So the whole idea was learning someone from the inside out, learning what they contribute to the world and what makes them special. You know, not placing expectations on present. We're really a lot more alike than we are different. I think people tend to forget that. And this was a performance that was there to help people remind. Reminding that we're all kind of the same. So in Taos, as Matt had mentioned, I'm doing Reverence, We Three. This is a performance I started writing, I want to say 2019, very beginning 2019. And it's actually a tribute to my sister and my brother, as well as anyone living with disability, anyone aging, anyone really anyone. So what I do during Reverence is I position myself in an area that's not accessible as an object of reverence to serve as a reminder that the community of the disabled community is the one community that does not discriminate, and you can join anytime. So these accommodations that we ask for every day are not just for us, but for everybody. Anybody in this room could fall and need a wheelchair. And I think we need to remember that. Inclusion is important for everybody. And so I'm not just joining by myself in these performances. I am joining with 2 empty wheelchairs. If you can go to the next slide now, I think the empty wheelchair. Oh, no, next one. That's a very long. So if you look, you'll notice I'm joining with 2 empty wheelchairs. The tapestries of the seat were made by my friend Carly out in Texas. They are inscribed with the initials of my brother and my sister, and they are done in their favorite colors. And my brother Jerry, J.D. Harold, who passed away July 5th of 2008 at the age of 27 years old. In my family home when I was there. And the other one is a lavender E for Erica Yvonne, my sister, who passed away 4 years and 1 month the day of my brother on August 5th of 2012 due to complications from my disability, for diaphragm quit working. And every performance that I give, everything that I accomplish is for them. I am a very blessed person to be here right now, talking to people. And to be in the classroom teaching students how to create. And to be in the world showing people how to live to the best of their ability. And fighting every day for myself, for the memory of the people that have passed that fight, they just wanted me to be part of this world. And it's time for a change. It really is, because it gets really hard to fight every day to do the simplest of things. It gets really hard to fight when you go out in public with your friends to a bar and you can't get in because there's a step. It gets really hard to fight, to have caregivers who give of their time, like my friend right there, who has given up her life and the entire life to be here, to take care of me, to help me accomplish my dreams, to pay them so little because they value us so little. That realization is hard to deal with, and it's one that's got to change. And it doesn't need to just start with the system. It needs to start with individual action. When you see something, say something. If you see a ramp that's not fixed, ask the person that works that place or the owner of that place why that ramp is the way it is. When you see that there is no access to an aisle for a person in a wheelchair to go and sit with their friends, get up and move the table. These little actions create these ripples, you know? And if I end on a note today, I want it to be that when you're out in the world after this artist talk, think about how you can speak up. Think about how you can contribute. Because at the end of the day, you could be right here where I'm at. And there could not be people like you are here listening to that voice. Okay? Be a ripple. Create change. Open yourself up to different people. Who cares what group you're a part of? You know? Inclusion is called inclusion because we're all in it together. And if this pandemic has shown us anything, is that we can get through a lot if we stay together. If we allow everybody to sit at the table and talk and listen, it's important. So be a ripple. Be a ripple so that I can find my footing. And you can too. Okay. I think that's it.
Yeah, good timing.
Yeah.
So we do have time for any questions that anyone might have.
I'm gonna do more. Guys can ask me whatever you want. Yes.
I met you a couple years ago. You
Were you the one that laid in bed with me? I remember you. I remember you laying behind me, and I remember you telling me your story. I was actually going to talk to you after the show.
Yeah.
I remember you just got behind me and you just wanted to hold somebody. I remember. I did that with you.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you. Just like, I just feel like you put everybody who sees your performances in a position of like discomfort and imagining of like what you're feeling and what you're doing. And almost like as if like you would imagine you'd be so uncomfortable doing what you're doing, you know, but it's really like the discomfort of the crowd that's happening. And so and same with like intimacy, it's like you're gaining intimacy from the people who interact with you, but like giving it to so many. And I think I just kind of like, not like I don't think of this stuff all the time, but just looking around and kind of seeing, you know, or just wondering who's receiving, you know, intimacy and touch, and how it's probably so many less people than we imagined, you know. And you just offer that to everybody. Well, I want to thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I remember, like I said, I remember you, and I remember being that moment with you. And it was more of a gift for me to give that to you than for you to give that to me. You know, being vulnerable is a two-way street. You know, and you build relationships through honesty and vulnerability. I do like to make people more comfortable, very much. If I could make you blush, I've done my job. If I can make you get up and leave the room for a moment and laugh and cry, I've done my job. But being uncomfortable is okay. Because being uncomfortable means if you can get out of that moment of discomfort, you can make it through. Then you're ready for another moment of discomfort and then another. Because if you live life thinking that it's just going to be comfortable every day, you're setting yourself up for some big disappointment. I'm not saying you need to expect it, but you need to be prepared for it. And you also need to be open to the idea that with discomfort can be comfort. Finding safety and confidence and strength within yourself. So you probably gained a lot more strength from that than I did. Because it was a time when you needed it.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, for sure.
You had one thing, didn't you?
Yeah, they're just like a little curl word.
I think you had a leather jacket on too. I think you had a leather jacket on also. Anyone else? Questions? Yes.
Hi, I would love to thank you first for creating the performance that is so confident by your vulnerability and and offering the uncomfortable environment situations to the able people. I grew up as an athletic child from age 10, and recently I'm finally doing art that is related to my experience of living with a disability, and it comes out, the film reminds me of art installations, but I do believe that communication is truly important. So I wanted to ask how, so you have been doing a lot of these performances in the different types, and especially in the South, where discriminations, judgments against people who are different. I'm not sure if it's not more vocal, but when I lived in the South, I also felt even stronger judgments against my color, my disability. And so I admire that you have been creating these pieces, especially in that area of the United States. And I wanted to ask, what are the positive change that you could see, or you could hear from the community that actually made the changes after your performance was brought into the community, besides those emotional communications with the participants who were there? Because that's one thing that I always kind of struggle when I'm trying to understand the presence and the reasons and the meanings of performance art disappeared. So while there positive changes that you could feel and read, and all these individuals feeling all these things are great, but for you to say the purpose or goal is to actually, come on, man, we can make those, paths for people who really need it, right?
Yeah.
Could you see certain changes that happened over maybe years after you left that site, or is it something you return and visit and hey, that eyebrow shop?
So what you're asking is, being from the South and in that community where there's a lot of, kind of backwards thinking, did I notice any changing from these performances in that community? And to be honest with you guys, this is the birthplace of reverence. The performances that I'm giving in Taos, these are my first performances of this performance series. So you guys are kind of like my testers to see how I can change a community, even if it's a small, just a little bit, I do have plans to take this performance. I'm always applying for grants, tons of grants. I would like for this to be a traveling performance that goes through states with roots in the civil rights and LGBTQ plus communities. And I would like to really go in areas where these cities should have everything accessible, and they're not maintaining it, you know? My idea with Reverence starting here is to see what it can do. If I can generate, through exposing a community with these performances, a network of communities that will bring me in to expand the dialogue, communication throughout different communities. I will say, I get this advocacy from my mother. When I was a little girl, my mom took me to me and my sister and my brother to our first protest to take the Capitol in Atlanta, Georgia. And I remember as a little girl seeing a man throw himself out of his wheelchair onto the steps and just being like, whoa, like dumbfounded by that. My mom actually had to fight for my sister to have a bathroom put in the school. She had to fight for my sister to go to normal school. She had to fight for us to go to school, period. She had to fight for us to go to our homeschool for high school. Everything that I've learned about fighting, I've learned from my mom. And I've learned that a lot can be done when you get angry and you put up signs. But a lot can be done when you sit there and you quietly reflect and you create open dialogue with people in a non-combative way. My mom would go to people in the community. She'd go to leaders in the community and she would talk to them, and she would be adamant about the fact that her kids were not going to be held back in school because people thought they were stupid because they were disabled. So everything that I have learned about opening my mouth and being proactive and speaking up for myself comes from my mom. So I can see what she's done in my community for me. I want to continue to do that the way she did. And she still does. Actually, she's a special needs educator and works throughout the county that I grew up in. So, anything else? Yes.
Thank you very much for being here and coming back to us. And I'm just wondering how the community and individuals can support your work.
How you as a community and individuals can support my work. Well, I think that if you want to support my work, I think that you should come out to the performances while I'm here. We'll do a social media reveal on Wednesdays. They happen on Fridays. They're from 3 hours before twilight is the day I have scheduled because threes are a big number for me. And honestly, as far as supporting my work, I mean, like I said, just show up for the performances. I really don't know what else. Yeah, I apply for anything and everything. So I'm hoping like fingers and toes crossed, Creative Capital gets wind of my work and she needs the money. So yeah, just come out. And if you really want to support my work in the community, like I said, be that regular, point something out. When you go out and you notice that something is not accessible, don't be afraid to go to that manager and say, this could be a violation, and this is very much like blocking a person from coming in to your establishment. Which makes no sense to me. You're basically taking money out of your own hand. Yeah? Oh, yeah.
We actually have a question on social media, Jessica. It's from Sarah Stoller. It says, thank you so much for your talk and work. I'm wondering if you can share some insight on how you conjure up the internal courage to present such vulnerable works, such as the insertion pieces.
Honestly, I'm a middle child. That's how. Seriously, growing up, my sister used to say, and I kid you not, my sister looked like Audrey Hepburn. She was beautiful, tiny. She used to go, I'm the pretty one, JD's the smart one, and you're the creative one. And I'm like, hey, I'm not saying that, but okay. But yeah, it comes from being a middle child. As a kid, I wanted to be known. I remember this is one of the funniest things ever. So there's this thing called the NBA poster child. My sister was an NBA poster child. They asked my mom if my brother could be an NBA poster child. They never asked me. And so one day, film crews all came to my house to videotape or to record my sister, being a cute little girl in a wheelchair and hammering it up to the telephone and all that. And I was super jealous. So I created this big dramatic scene. Like I packed a bag. I even did the stick and handkerchief thing. And I got a tape cassette and I drew little pictures in the tape cassette. And I wrapped my favorite Barbie brush in the paper and stuck it in the tape cassette. And in front of the film crews, I rolled in and said, I'm leaving. This is your Christmas present. And I rolled out the front door. Kid you not. So dramatic. But I think that's what this occurs. I learned a long time ago, it's not easy being the chubby girl in a wheelchair growing up. People are very mean. And I learned to have a pretty thick skin, which makes me able to handle vulnerable situations with a certain amount of grace and dignity and roll away from them. And if I feel I need to give the middle finger, I will. But most of the times, I just kind of smile and I use that moment as a point to show them just how strong I can be against the face of adversity in that moment. So my courage just comes from growing up with crazy siblings and cousins that would just throw me around and being dramatic. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. I don't know how to be any other way than I am. I used to pretend a lot. I'm pretending to be what you're not just becomes so damn tired. No matter how much I wanted to take the chair away, no matter how much I wanted the weight to dissolve, this is just the way it is, and I have to be okay with that. But that doesn't mean I have to get into the negativity that comes along with that. I can use it as a place of empowerment to change my world, to change the world around me, and to change the world for the people that are in the same position as I am. That's what I do. That's all I know.
Any other questions? I think we're winding down.
Oh, keep trying to go on spotlight.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jessica. Thanks, everyone, for coming out online and here in the theater. We'll be doing the reveal tomorrow for your next performance on Friday, and it's about 5:40, 5:30. We'll check the exact time for Twilight, 3 hours before Twilight. We also like to invite you to the TCA on Sunday. That is the 13th, and we're doing a 2 o'clock matinee of Crip Camp. It's an Oscar-nominated documentary. It's incredible, and Jessica will be doing a Q&A afterwards with the co-directors, and that'll be moderated by Nancy Loppenheimer. So it should be a really nice event. We will have the film will not be streamed live, but the Q&A will be streamed live from the Encore Gallery at the TCA. So otherwise, keep an eye out every Friday this month for Jessica's performance pieces.
And bring flowers. My
that's right.
dream for this performance is that by the last performance, that the wheelchairs and the ground in front of me be covered with flowers, and for everybody to engage in creating this beautiful mosaic of inclusion from these establishments that need to promote inclusion. Well, thank you guys.
Thanks.